Hello friends, and welcome into the second video of the series. If you missed the first one, my name is Steven, and I'm working on building a VR project basically from scratch. I'm going from Blender and moving that project into Unity and building a VR environment from there. In this series, we're going to be adding a little bit of detail to the scene that we already created in the first scene, or at least adding some detail to this scene in the second video. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the top cabinet. Instead of having one large cabinet go across, I'm going to cut that down into two. And Shift D to duplicate that, and use that little magnet tool, or I call it magnet tool, but it's a snap. Then G, and the snap does all the work for you. I'm playing around with the dimensions of it. Eventually I'm going to add a solidify modifier, so it's not just a 2D, I guess, walls. See how that looks. Here we'll go to modifier, add the solidify modifier, even thickness, so it's the right dimensions all around. That's a little bit too much. Maybe like how that looks. So same thing here. Add solidify modifier, even thickness. Not too bad, it's a good start. Now we're going to add a plane as a shelf. And play around with the dimensions of the shelf plane based off of the dimensions of the cabinet here. That's the wrong axis. And again, I'm going to use the snap tool to kind of help me out here. I'm probably going to have to toy around with this a little bit based off of the solidify modifier, and I'm going to use a solidify modifier on on the shelf as well. So I'm using the snap tool and the wireframe to help line up the shelf to the dimensions of the cabinet. I'm probably still gonna have to play around with this with the lighting, especially since I'm gonna add a solidify modifier to the shelf, but we'll use this to go. Shift D to duplicate and press Y on the keyboard to move this new shelf on the Y axis. That looks pretty good. And then let's go ahead and, while we're still in the wireframe, let's adjust this appropriately. See if the shadows make sense, or if I'm sticking way out to the side here. Yeah, still some adjustments. So looking at the dimensions of the cabinet and the dimensions, or at least the scale of the solidify modifier, I'm going to kind of scale this down. Might need to touch that up one more time. This probably looks a little better. Not too bad, that'll work. And rendered mode doesn't look bad at all. So now let's go ahead and if we add the solidify modifier, that may compensate for that gap. So even thickness, scale this up just a little bit. That's too much. Yeah, no, that looks pretty good. Adjust the location. Let's bring this up a little bit. It looks a little too low. So based off the dimensions of this cabinet, let's change the location of the shelf a little bit closer to what would be center. Let's just drag this up a little. That looks pretty good. And Yeah, I like that. Let's just make it a better number there so it's easier to duplicate. 3.8 works for me. And 3.8. All right. Looks good. Nothing's poking out the back. Shadows are okay. All right. Now let's work on making the doors. So we're gonna Shift A, grab a, I wanna make this in like a panel kind of thing, so we'll make a cube. And let's find the right dimensions. Let's adjust the scale here. See what that looks like. It's still a little thick. And getting closer. And that's the wrong decimal place. Much better. We need to change the scale on the Z. So let's make this a little bit easier on myself. Let's get out of edit mode. I'm going to grab it. Let's get away from the snap, don't need that. We're just going to G to grab, move it on the X axis, and that should give me a little bit of space to play around for now. And let's tab into edit mode. There you go, tab. And then I'm going to hit W to subdivide when I have this face selected. And press W. There we go, subdivide. And then when you hit the subdivide menu, there's going to be a little box to the bottom left. And then we'll increase that number. That looks pretty good right here. And then we're going to select the faces in the center. And if you hold Control while you select, I use right click select. So Control right click, boop, 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 and boop. And then delete. And then on the faces, boom, Shazam, those are gone. And then we're gonna do the same on this side. So Control, right click, hold Control, right click select for me. Boop, 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 boop. And then delete faces, and look at that. We're onto something. Now, I might change the dimensions on this. Yeah, let's adjust this ever so slightly. Yeah, it looks good. All right, now, so I'm gonna hit Shift A to add a plane, hit R to rotate, Y for the Y axis, then type 90 degrees. And then we're gonna scale this down. So S to scale and bring this down. Now this probably, I might be able to do this in another way, but I'm planning on making this a different texture, and to avoid having to fight with this, I made a separate object that I'll parent to the door. And I'm sure this is going to be painful to watch a little bit as I kind of dial this in, but we'll make this work. wrong axis. There you go, on the Y. Scale that down a little bit. Use the snap tool. Now in hindsight, I know the dimensions of the door. I use a subdivider on even, even dimensions, so I could use a bit of arithmetic to get the perfect scale, but I'm committed to doing this the hard way, so let's just wrap this up. Back and forth through the wireframe, adjusting the scale on the Y, and a little bit of the snap tool, and we'll be there. That doesn't look half bad. Alright, so that looks pretty good. We'll duplicate the door and add some textures in subsequent videos. Thanks for watching.